We just came through an election. Did you notice? I guess I would suspect, like many of you, prior to the election, I was getting phone calls like crazy on my home phone and cell phone, just calls all day long. And some I answered and some I ignored, especially if there was no identification with the call. I was getting one call twice a day, every day, from an 800 number, no ID, and I ignored it. And it started before the election, and it continued right up to the election, and then it continued after the election. It went on for 3 more days. So finally I answered it, and it turned out it wasn't a political call at all. It was a sales call from a technology company. And I asked them to stop calling, and they did. And for that I am very grateful. And I'm glad the election is over. And I have to say, personally, that I'm grateful for the outcome of the election. For the most part, the people I supported and the issues that I supported and wanted to see win won the day. And that makes me happy. But I'm also mindful of the fact that there are still a lot of unhappy people whose people and issues did not win the day on election day. And I've been through a number of election seasons, as some of you have. And I've been where they are. And right now they're somewhere in the midst of those 7 stages of grief. Denial and anger and blame, and somewhere in there right now, I think. And I know what that feels like. So I want to be careful not to gloat, but to be both grateful and humble. Because I know that the worm will turn, and things will turn around again. And having been on more than a few of those losing sides, I have also learned over the years that despite my despair in the moment, amazingly enough, the world does not come to an end. There's a psalm that kind of speaks to that. It's from Psalm 30. Sing praises to God, O you faithful ones, and give thanks to God's name. For God's anger is but for a moment, and God's favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may linger for the night, but joy will come in the morning. There's also a good song that comes out of that. In one of my favorite Bible books, Ecclesiastes, that familiar passage says that there's a time for weeping and a time for rejoicing. And I've actually come to believe over the years that the fine art of living well calls for an ability to be able to do the same both simultaneously. Because whether you win or lose an election, the world remains a very messed up place. I mean, at this very moment, in this country, we are on the brink of that fiscal cliff. And now we are on the brink of another Middle East war. And both of these, and as well as looking around the world, virtually every problem that we face right now, and there's an incredible number of them, are human-made problems. In fact, we could probably get rid of the nicety of the non-sexist language and say most of them are man-made problems. And they remind us, if we don't need reminding, that we have an amazing capacity to screw up the world. And There is always room for pessimism about the outcome of things, and sorrow in the wake of suffering that we bring upon ourselves and others. But do you know that there's also always room for gratitude and praise? And do you know that we have a choice? I think you do. That we can choose to be grumpy. We can choose to be depressed about the state of the world. We can choose to be hopeless and feel hopeless. And sometimes there's a place for that. But even if that's true, we also can choose to look around the world and give thanks and be grateful.